Hi book besties, welcome back. I'm so excited to be doing my first reading wrap up of the year today. I had a pretty great reading month in January. I guess I would say it's kind of half and half because I did have some that weren't that great, but I also had a lot that were above a 4 stars. I read 8 books in January, which is crazy because the most amount of books that I read in 1 month last year was 8 books, so I'm off to a great start. Let's jump right into it. The first book that I read in January was Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets by J.K. Rowling. I'm doing a reread of this series. I haven't read it since I was maybe like 12 or 13 years old, so it's very nostalgic and fun for me to read. Obviously, this is fantasy. If you don't know what Harry Potter is, it's about a boy who finds out he's a wizard and gets accepted into this magical school where he learns all about magic, makes some really amazing friends, but also year after year he is faced with increasingly more scary encounters with Lord Voldemort, who is the villain in this book. This is the second book, if I didn't already say that. So in this one, we're still kind of just dipping our toes into the world, but it's still very magical, very spooky, very nostalgic, and I'm finding it very hard actually to rate these books. I am rating them, but I just find it so hard because to me they all just like clump together into my favorite series of all time, so I just feel weird about rating them. So yeah, but I did give this a 4.25. I can guarantee that not a single one of the Harry Potter books will be below a 4.25. I guarantee that's the lowest it's gonna go. I love these books so much. They're so near and dear to my heart. Loved this one. Then I read A Woman Is No Man by E. Taff Rum. This is a fiction story about a conservative Arab family that lives in America. We're following Isra and Daya. Isra came to America with her new husband from Palestine, and she is learning how to navigate her new marriage in this new country, while also trying to learn and understand how her new family dynamics are because she's with her husband's family now. So we see Isra become very indoctrinated into this culture. She doesn't want to upset anybody. She just does what she's told. She is forced to stay in the house because she is not allowed to leave the house without her husband, so she spends most of her life inside, wishing that she could go out. She battles with not knowing if this is the right thing, if this is how life is supposed to be. She feels like there's more to life, but she feels very stuck and she doesn't feel like she can do anything about it. So she becomes very depressed. Her only comfort comes when her sister-in-law brings her books from school and she's able to read, but she is also not allowed to do that, so she has to do that in secret. She teaches her daughters about reading. She reads stories to her daughters, and her daughter Daya also falls in love with reading. And we're also following Daya, who is in a later timeline, who is Isra's daughter, and Daya is fighting with what it means to be an American teenager, as well as trying to make her family happy, but she is quickly learning that there really isn't any way to make her family happy and to also be happy herself. For a little bit of the book, we also do follow the grandmother of this family, so Isra's husband's mother. We get to see her perspective on the world, on her religion, on her family. We see how hard on her family she is and how she is very conservative and believes strongly in her customs and culture. She's very old school. So we get to see how that affects her family, but also how she came to be the way that she is. I gave this book a 4.5 stars. This was my favorite book of the month. I'll read my Fable review. Rum's writing is so beautiful and hits you right in the gut. This book was so raw and so bleak. I love the way she weaved in and out of timelines with different characters, but brought the story together perfectly in the end. She is a master of making the reader see and feel these women's cultural oppression and generational trauma. The progression of Isra's character becoming more and more oppressed broke my heart into pieces. just wow. There's so much to say about this book. I feel like everyone should read this. I know nothing, obviously, about Arab culture, but I just felt so close to these women. Etaf Rum's writing is just so beautiful. Like, the prose is amazing, but also the way she's able to hit you so hard with one single sentence. It's just amazing, you guys. This book is so, so good. I highly recommend picking this up, even if it doesn't sound like a book that you would be interested in, because I wasn't overly excited to pick it up. Yes, it was on my list of books to read, but it wasn't one that I was really excited about, and it was just amazing. It blew me away. And then I DNF'd The Atlas Paradox. I DNF'd this at 67%. I was so close to finishing this, but I just could not do it. I read this in a reading vlog, and in that vlog you see me just battling with whether or not to finish this book out. I did like the Atlas 6, and I was hoping that the Atlas Paradox would make me more connected to the characters, because I think that's really one of the only things that I was missing in the Atlas 6, but I just did not like these characters. These characters didn't even have anything redeemable about them, to be honest. They were all either like horrible people, or they were just so whiny and awful, and I just couldn't do it. And the other thing I couldn't do was the writing style. I know a lot of people have issues with the writing style. I didn't find it too bad in the first one, but in the second one, I just couldn't get into it. It was like she was trying to describe like one single simple thing, but it was turned into like multiple pages of like describing and just like trying to be like philosophical, but it wasn't really working. I don't know. I made it 67% of the way through, and although a few things had happened, it's like there was so much unnecessary fluff, and it wasn't even like good fluff. It was just too wordy, in my opinion. So yeah, I DNF'd this one, and I'm not sad about it. I don't think about this book. I don't wish that I had kept reading. The next book that I read was Prince Caspian by C.S. Lewis. This is the fourth book in the Chronicles of Narnia series. These are very short and sweet, which I love about them. We are following our four main children in this one on another little adventure in Narnia. Loved this. As I said, I gave this a 4.25 stars. I absolutely love how C.S. Lewis just jumps directly into the story. This is like no fluff, but so nostalgic and so magical and whimsical. Honestly, just such a great story. Yes, it's a children's book, but it's still so enjoyable. This world is so fun, and I love these kids. Next, I read Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, which is the third book in the Harry Potter series. Again, absolutely love this. I rated this a 4.25 also. Don't know what else to say. I already said it about Chamber of Secrets. I just love this series so much. Ride or die for me. It's so amazing. One thing that I didn't mention about Chamber of Secrets is that in this series, I'm loving seeing all of the little things that were left out of the movies that I forgot about. There was a lot of changes to the movie for this one, and I just found it so interesting diving into the book again and seeing what was different. Next, I read Children of Fallen Gods by Carissa Broadbent. This is the second book in the War of Lost Hearts trilogy. I really enjoyed this one. I feel like I was able to get to know the characters better. If you don't know what this series is about, we're following Tasana, who escaped from slavery, and she runs to the Orders, who are these powerful magic wielders, and she asks them to help her to free the rest of her slaves in her home country. They agree to do this for her, but it does come at a price, and she is essentially used as a weapon in the Order's war as well. So that's all in the first book, but obviously I'm not going to tell you anything about the second book if you haven't read it. But I just felt like I was really starting to connect with the characters in this book. The first book was a little bit hard for me. If you watch the vlog where I read this and the Atlas Paradox, you know that I listened to the audiobook for the first one and also for this one. Not all the way through. It was just kind of like back and forth between physical and audio. But I found that I was enjoying my time with these books way more when I was physically reading them. I do not enjoy these audiobooks. I just don't think that the voice actors match the characters, and it just makes it feel a little bit cheesy for some reason. I just could not connect to these books through the audiobook. So I'm kind of glad that I just discovered that, so that for the last book, I probably will mostly just physically read it. That way I feel like I'll connect with this series a lot more. Did I already say I gave this book a 4.25 as well? Then for my in-person book club, we read Lunaria by Kara Douglas. No, my cousin-in-law picked this one and she was really excited about it because the reviews look really great. When you go on Goodreads or Fable, it's a bunch of people talking about how great it is and how amazing the world building is. But come to find out, a lot of these reviews got ARC copies, and I don't know if they actually liked it or if they were just saying it was good because they were happy to get the ARC. I'm not really sure, but this was not good, you guys. This wasn't good. It wasn't horrible, but it didn't have any redeeming qualities. It felt like a mishmash of a bunch of different fantasy elements. Like she was trying to make a bunch of different elements work, but they weren't connected. And it was like Regency, but also like magical and not that that doesn't work in other books, but like my cousin-in-law put it, she basically said, this feels like it was written by a 10th grader trying to write their first fantasy book, and that's so accurate. This was so boring and so, it had no direction. There were parts where I felt like there was hope. Like there was a couple garden parties, which I thought were kind of fun if they were more developed. That's really what it was, is I feel like this needed a lot more development. This could be a good book. This story could go somewhere, but it was so underdeveloped. There was just no plot. No. I rated this a 2.5 stars, which is crazy because last year I didn't read any books that were under a 3 stars. So yeah, kind of crazy. I did not enjoy this. If I was reading this on my own and it wasn't a book club pick, I would have DNF'd it after the first probably 2 chapters. Not even gonna lie to you guys, because even the first 2 chapters in, it's very clear that the writer needs more practice. Next, I read The Outsider by Stephen King. This was my first Stephen King book. This is about a baseball coach in a small town who gets arrested for the murder of a small boy. But things get weird when his colleagues can back up his alibi and say that they were with him during the time of the murder. But then you have multiple people in the town saying that they saw him coming out of the woods at the scene of the crime, covered in blood, acting funny. So the police are trying to figure out, how can you be 2 places at once? This is ominous and spooky for sure. I really enjoyed watching the behind the scenes investigation and seeing the police struggle with what they think is fact, and then also having to potentially think about the supernatural and how that affects their morals and what that means for their case. I really enjoyed all of that. But I will say that I didn't really enjoy the way that Stephen King describes women. He describes women a lot by their weight and how they look, not in a just this is how it is way, but more in just an icky way. I don't really know how else to explain it. I just didn't like that. And the first couple times I was like, okay, I don't really like that, but let's just keep going. But it kept happening for the first, I would say 25% of the book. And it got to a point where I was actually rolling my eyes every time it happened because it happened so many times. So that was icky. Didn't like that. Don't really know how I feel about Stephen King currently. I will definitely give him another try because I did enjoy the book. For the most part, I gave this a 3.5 stars. Pretty mid to me. Like, it definitely was interesting and I wanted to know what was happening, but it wasn't like my favorite thing in the whole world. And lastly, I read Forever Never by Lucy Score. In this, we're following Brick and Remy. We are on a small island off the coast of Michigan, I believe. Remy grew up there and Brick came there when he was a teenager with his brother. They always had feelings for each other, but Remy moved away from the island when she graduated and when Brick did not want to be with her, or so it seemed. And Remy gets herself into a bit of trouble, and so she comes back to Mackinac Island to be with her family and to get away from her problems, essentially, in Chicago. And from there, she moves into an Airbnb across from Brick's house, and you can probably see where this is going. I gave this a 3 stars. I, for the most part, enjoyed the characters. I enjoyed the setting. I am glad that I read it in January because it is very wintry. So if you're looking for like a wintry romance, I liked our FMC. I thought she was spunky and fun. And I also really liked her family. The issues that I have with this book, first and foremost, this is way too long. Way too long for a romance. It is 564 pages. That is almost 600 pages of a romance, which I just don't personally like unless there's more to it. And it kind of felt like Lucy Score was trying to give more to it because there was like a bit of a thriller aspect with what Remy was wrapped up in. And then there was kind of like little side stories here and there. We got like a little bit of her sister and her sister's marriage. We got like Brick's backstory and everything, which was all well and good. And I enjoyed all of those parts, but a lot of this could have been cut out. This had way too much smut in it. And that's just a me opinion. Definitely not judging anybody who wants to read smut, but for me, I don't want to read that much smut. I don't mind if there is smut in a book, and I feel like at some points it does enhance a book and it does make it feel like very adult, which I appreciate, but I feel like if there's more than 3 smut scenes, I'm like, okay. I don't care anymore. I don't care anymore. That, but also the MMC. I was going back and forth about liking him and disliking him. He was very possessive, almost to a point that felt like borderline emotionally abusive, and not a fan. He was also very cringy at parts, and they were very insta-lovey. I mean, I know that they had background and that they always had like a crush on each other or whatever. Also, Brick is like way older than her, and they met when she was like 15. There's like a few times where they're talking and they're like, I couldn't like you because it was inappropriate, but clearly like he did like her. No, I don't like it. So yeah, I did have a lot of problems with this, but even though I did have problems with it, it was very like good for a palate cleanser. I really did need a palate cleanser after reading all of the fantasy and the Stephen King book that I read. So it was really good to read some fluff, which is what this was to me. This was fluff. And you need that sometimes. So it was nice for that, but I skipped over so many smut scenes because I was just so sick of it. Those are the books that I read in January, guys. Overall, I do feel like I had a successful month. There were definitely some flops and some downsides, but I really enjoyed this month and I feel like it was a great start to 2025 in terms of the reading year. I would love to know what you guys read in January, or if you guys have read any of these books and your thoughts and feelings about them. If you haven't subscribed already, I would love to have you in my little corner of BookTube. Let me know what kind of content you guys want to consume this year. But until next time, guys, bye!